Welcome to the Journee Continues Podcast with real voices, real recovery. Today we have the mayoral candidate, Rogelio Landin, who is a write-in candidate, and his information will be in the comment section so you can get to know who he is and what's his plans for the city of Detroit. But today, the reason why he's here, we have, in collaboration with other treatment facilities and recovery coaches, we created some questions um, that we brought him in here to answer on how he's going to be a leader for Detroit and what he's going to, the initiatives that he's going to take to continue the strength and wealth of Detroit. So with that being said, welcome, Mr. Rogelio.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Thank you. So our first question, what inspired you to run for mayor of Detroit, and how do your personal experiences shape your leadership style?
What inspired me was, frankly, what is before us is our situation and all that encompasses. Detroit has been, for all intents and purposes, in the same situation for 30 years. We've had 50% illiteracy. We've had 40% poverty. We've had 20 to 30% unemployment, depending on whose numbers you look at. And we have not moved the needle essentially where it needs to be, upwards, to help improve the quality of life for our people. My experience in the last 50 years has been in education, in workforce, and in economic development. All three issues that you are hearing about from people running, other candidates running in this race. The difference between me and them is I've done it and I can tell you how. And the resources are available to me to make the things that I suggest and recommend a reality for the people of our city.
Thank you. What is your long-term vision for Detroit?
My long-term vision for Detroit is to reach over 1 million people in population by 2030. And the way we do that is with annexation. It is the core foundation of my campaign. It was how Detroit was built before, and it is how we can do it again, which is why when you visit my website, you will see Detroit 2.0, and we can do it again. There are 28 distressed communities in and around Detroit who can contribute their populations, and that together we can raise all boats.
How will you remain accountable to the communities if you are elected?
Everything that I have ever done, I will stand on my record. 50 years of governance, policy, programming, budgets, audits, everything that's been involved in managing resources for our people. Never once has there been a question mark or a scandal about anything. And that will cover literally hundreds of millions of dollars over the years. That I've always been above board. I've always been transparent. And if it can't be and I can't be, I won't have anything to do with it. Integrity is the cornerstone of everything I have ever done.
What is your plan to support individuals in recovery from substance use disorder, particularly those re-entering society after incarceration?
I am the only candidate who ever did recovery work here in Wayne County. I wrote the reentry grant. I implemented the reentry grant and was with Reverend Dee Dee Coleman in implementing the serious and violent offender reentry program. Worked with corrections at the state as well as the federal level, and have all of that experiential background in terms of engaging with service providers in the community. All of that experience brought together, having done the advocacy with employers, putting together job fairs, putting together service fairs, putting together the kinds of resources that are needed by this community. And I just found out something from one of your staff here, your program director, about things that are in motion to try and take funds away and defund DWD Win here in Detroit and outsource that to possibly even out of state providers. I can tell you right now, that is not something I intend to wait to be elected for or to get involved in terms of advocacy. We need to make sure that that does not happen, to depersonalize our services for people, if any population needs as personalized service as possible, as individualized service as possible, to support their ability to succeed upon reentry.
Thank you. How will you work with nonprofits, recovery homes, and peer support programs to expand access to transitional housing and recovery services?
The how is quite simply this: directly engage through whatever mechanisms are already in place in the city, and if those need to be enhanced, and we can do that within the constraints of the budget, by all means, we will be looking for efficiencies. We will be looking for direct lines of communication to make sure that every possible available resource we have at our disposal is made available to this vulnerable population.
Thank you. Do you support integrating harm reduction strategies into public health policies? Why or why not?
That I would have to take a closer look at. I don't know that you can paint that whole issue with a broad stroke and say yes or no. I would say wherein feasible, wherein it recognizes itself in more effectiveness as well as efficiencies, we would take a look at it. Uh, to me, coming in, everything is on the table. I'm not saying no to anything. I require three things of anybody who brings anything to the administration, and that is quite simply a social impact study, an economic impact study, and a source of revenue that may or may not already exist. Based on those three things, we will take them. I'm not saying no to anything.
You know, I like to say thank you for not just jumping into that question. You heard the question and you answered honestly by
Yeah.
saying, I don't know the answer right now, but everything is on the table and we're going to figure it out. So
Yeah.
thank you for not just giving us anything, saying yes, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z and can't carry it out.
That's not me.
Okay.
And I can say this: there have been a lot of forums with a lot of other candidates.
Mhm.
Some I have not been invited to, but what you've seen essentially is what you said. A lot of candidates, whatever the question is, yes, yes, yes. I do believe that any number of them are just a bit disingenuous
Mhm.
in terms of those responses.
Thank you. How will your administration ensure equitable economic development that benefits long-time residents, not just large developers?
I believe that, and again, a complex question and issue, because all things do not apply to all development. Um, I am without a doubt the most engaged person on the community benefits ordinance that was passed by the city, and developing community-based or community-based agreements um, in terms of those developments yielding benefits for, again, the strategic areas that are impacted by that development. And that's an important piece of the puzzle that a lot of people overlook. And there's a lot of misinformation about the availability of resources, and somehow this being a grab bag for major developers versus coming at the expense of the community. Nothing could be further from the truth. And I know that there are a lot of people who would take issue with that. But I am prepared to engage on that because, again, that's what this is all about. The Community Benefits Ordinance, number one, was voted for by the city of Detroit. Number two, I will uphold and respect everything that the voters have voted up, and to the extent possible, ensure the integrity of the intent and the purpose. And that is to develop resources. What's happened in a short, long story short, is that they've taken unproductive properties that weren't generating any tax revenue, basically, and converted them into productive properties that will be generating tax revenue in 10, 12, or 15 years. Yeah, it's the long term. But when you look at it, those properties have been unproductive for over 20 years in most cases, and you still didn't have anything to show for it. The point is, this is a long-term investment that the only thing required of us is patience relative to seeing the returns that ensures the future of tax base to do the kinds of things that the community would rather have done now. But again, these are things that are organic. They take some time. They will produce revenue, and they ensure a revenue stream to do the kinds of things that need to be done into the future.
Thank you. Would you support multiple partnerships that allow city owned or donated properties to be used by nonprofits? If so, how?
Again, I'm not saying no to anything.
Mm-hmm.
If these nonprofits and we one of the things that our nonprofit world has not done is taken full advantage of all of the different classifications of nonprofit status. You've got 501c1s all the way to 501c26s, which provide you any number of opportunities. 501c2s can generate revenue. They can do real estate transactions with those. So my answer is, again, I'll go back to what I said before.
Mm-hmm.
Bring me a social impact statement, bring me an economic impact statement, and bring me a financial plan, and we'll sit down and take a look at it. All of those things make sense. My answer is yes. Anything that takes unproductive and converts it to productive, yes, we're going to make that work for the city.
Thank you. How do you envision improving public safety in a way that also builds trust between law enforcement and Detroit's communities?
There are things, and sometimes we can take a look at things that have worked in the past and consider updating them for our environment today. But there were concepts that did very, very well in the past, and to that I would, and I've heard another candidate recently say it, and I agree and support neighborhood city halls that used to be neighborhood mini stations in conjunction with the police department. These were essentially moving precincts, extensions of precincts into the communities where people were never really more than a few blocks away from their city services as well as their law enforcement presence. And that in and of itself, as a beginning, things like walking the beat may sound old fashioned, but there's something about having a presence in the community, something that people can see, not unlike security guards in the mall, security guards in the stores, and wherever you see it. It's a deterrent. And anything that we can provide as a deterrent to our people, to if they're thinking about doing something, and maybe not because I could get caught, then we've saved someone from making a huge mistake in terms of doing something they might not otherwise do if a presence were not immediately available.
Thank you. What mental health initiatives would you prioritize to reduce violence and substance abuse in high risk neighborhoods?
I am prepared to promote a program that is based on EAPs pervasively, ubiquitously in everything that we do. Everyone should have access. Now, you've seen it in education from the state level down, promoting the need for mental health programs for our youth, for our children. The same for our seniors, depression. There isn't one segment of our community that is not in need of behavioral wellness and or mental health supports. There is a service that I'm aware of, and one that I intend to find the way to make available to anyone who's willing to take advantage of it in every aspect of what we do, whether it's workforce, education, be it community support, vulnerable communities, and we've got many, and we could stay here all morning and talk about each one individually. My point is, my objective is to make mental health services in any iteration available to everyone in Detroit who would like to have them available.
Okay, so I just have a question for the audience that does not know. What is EAP? Can you explain that to
EAPs
them?
are what's considered employee assistance programs
Mm-hmm.
that are targeted for supports by corporations and companies to assist, because the cost of turnover is so great. The cost of losing an employee is so great. It's cheaper for them to provide these services and pay for them to recapture that human capital that they might otherwise lose to consider an addiction, a behavioral problem, or whatever. That concept was morphed by me and a company that I work with into the same kind of supports for students,
Mm-hmm.
which morphed into a behavioral wellness program that was presented to the National Title I Conference. And that morphed into coaching as well to provide even more support for our students on an extended level. And fast forward to seniors who may be suffering with depression, or who may be suffering with loneliness, who may be suffering with there's always going to be someone there. And aside from the caregivers and family and everyone else, everybody can't be there all the time. It was a lesson that I learned in my life with my mother, taking care of her, that ultimately led to her passing after an assault and a break in. You just can't be with someone 24 hours a day. So I will see to it and commit to it. And I've already done the economics. I know that the company and the program and the work, that everyone in the city of Detroit who wants and needs these kinds of services will have access to them.
Thank you for elaborating. What is your strategy for engaging and supporting Detroit's youth, especially those at risk of substance use or justice involvement?
I will reach out. First of all, we have networks of providers who engage. Um, Company I was with previously, SARE Metro Detroit, was the contractor about 20 years ago or so, 25 years ago, to the feds on the YO program. It was the Youth Opportunity Grant. Mm-hmm. And we ran it out of the Samaritan Center over on the east side, mm-hmm. but we had extensions all over the city. I think that the thing is, again, number one, to find our way take over the schools. I'll just say it plain and simple. My approach is strong mayor model. We've tried everything else. It hasn't worked. We are no better off today than we were 30 years ago in terms of proficiencies for our children. We're losing 60% to absenteeism, and that, I have to believe, in some, if not a great part, is due to the fact that they don't feel engaged in the schools. I'm the only person running who actually has hands-on experience with closing the achievement gap programs successfully in Ohio, working with an HBCU, developing urban programming, as well as reading lists for engaging our youth in an urban setting like Detroit. We have strong mayor models working in DC, in New York, in Boston, even in Cleveland, and other cities around the country, where strong mayor models are working, have worked, and continue to work. I think there's things that we can learn. I know there's things that we can learn, and there's things that I have personally been involved with that have worked. That I can sit here and unequivocally say to you that we can raise 10 points of proficiency, not 10%, 10 points in proficiencies in 12 months if we implement the things that we did in Ohio. And we did it in 17 districts. We did it with at-risk African American males. We did it with at-risk Hispanics and at-risk women or female students as well. This is important now because recently the governor herself has issued an executive order about being more inclusive of going after males, and particularly at-risk African American males. I am the only candidate who can point to a record of having worked with a program that served as the foundation for My Brother's Keeper, President Obama's premier program in addressing at-risk African American males in the education system.
Thank you. Will your administration support prevention-based education, job training for youth, which you touched on a little bit? What would that look like?
Yes, to all of the above. And again, there are islands of excellence right here in Detroit. Crystal Ray, you have, and some of these are charter based, others not. But one of the things that's important in all of this uh, is getting our youth an opportunity. And I'll go right off the bat right now because I've heard the question asked. You know, do I support or would a candidate support paying children to go to school? I do not. I will support paying an employer that amount of money to give that student a job and get them the values where they can, you know, learn the values of soft skills, of showing up, of being there, being responsible, those intrinsic things that are part of a successful pursuit of employment and getting a job and staying on the job. I believe that just giving someone money sends the wrong message. It's a band-aid to a problem that still exists. I am more solution-based, and I believe that supporting employment opportunities for youth in some way, shape, or form in partnership with employers is the way to go.
Thank you so much. So that concludes all our questions. The last thing I would like you to do is I want you to tell the audience why it's important to vote. Um,
I'll stop you right there.
mhm.
My involvement in the community began quite literally with the creation of New Detroit Incorporated. New Detroit Incorporated was an outcome of the riots in '67. And it brought together every stream of stakeholder in the city to sit down and address what ultimately came to be the foundational part of New Detroit, and that was the realization of community self-determination. Let me say that again: community self-determination. It begins with voting. 80% of our folks did not vote in the last primary, and then possibly even more. But let's say 80%. What you have done by not voting is relegating your right to self determination. I would ask for that vote. If you don't feel, and I've heard reports recently that people are still feeling anxious, frustrated about the field of candidates, I invite you to visit my website and look at everything else that I'm talking about. But to the point of voting, there is nothing more patriotic, nothing more important to your future, your family's future, your children's future, than shaping the makeup and composition of the leadership that you provide for the city, vis-a-vis for the state, and onward going on for the nation. This election has national implications in terms of the relationships and what we can provide as a template, if not a model, for other urban cities to look at. This is the way America is going. We need to work together. We need to come together, and we need to understand that that future depends on you, every one of you, in terms of your vote, everyone that you know in terms of your vote. So please do not overlook or bypass the opportunity to contribute to the outcome of the leadership in this city. And I hope that I will be amongst those that you consider voting for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogelio. Sorry. And I just want to add that voting is very important. There was a time that when I did begin to vote, I was just voting to say that I voted. Um, Also, I would vote. I didn't do the research on the candidates. I would just go in, and if the name sound familiar, if it was a name that I could relate to, I would cast my vote for that person. With that being said, this podcast was created for the recovery community, right? But as a precinct delegate, my duty is to be an advocate for the community at large, right? So, with that being said, this is not just a safe space for people in recovery. This is a safe space for everyone. This is the people's podcast. So, it is my duty to inform you, to educate you, and that's why we have the mayoral candidate Rogelio here to discuss with you what his plans are for Detroit's future. So I thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe, and we'll see you soon.